9,000 years ago, in a city called Jericho, people dug up their dead relatives' skulls, rebuilt their faces out of plaster, pressed shells into the eye sockets so they'd look like they were sleeping. And then kept them in the house. Not buried. Not hidden. On display. They didn't think of death the way we do. To them, the dead didn't really leave. And it wasn't just one weird tribe doing this. From caves in Spain to cliffs in China, humans have been obsessing over death for tens of thousands of years. Today we're going to find out exactly how ancient humans dealt with the one thing every human has ever had to face. Death is the only experience every human has in common. Yet how we're supposed to react to it has changed constantly. Funerals, mourning periods, burial, cremation, all culture, not instinct. Even how long you're allowed to grieve is a cultural rule someone invented. There's no biological switch that says, okay, 1 month of sadness is enough. So what did it look like before religion as we know it existed? Before coffins, before priests, before headstones? Turns out, the answer is way stranger than, they just buried people in the ground. Around 9,000 years ago in Jericho, people buried their dead under the floors of their own homes. Imagine sleeping every night directly above your grandfather. Jericho itself was already ancient by then, one of the very first permanent settlements humans ever built, founded thousands of years before the pyramids. After the body decomposed, the skull was removed, the jawbone taken off completely. The skull was rebuilt, plaster layered over the face to recreate cheeks, a nose, the shape of lips. Some were painted with red ochre, or even what researchers think might have been blood pigment. At Catalhoyuk, archaeologists found a plastered skull placed directly in the arms of an older woman's grave, positioned like she was hugging it. Only a small number of skulls got this treatment. Most bodies were left completely alone. Someone was choosing who got remembered this way. That's arguably the earliest known version of deciding who gets a monument. Some skulls were grouped in circles, or in threes, facing the same direction, almost like they were positioned to watch over something. Even babies were excluded. Infants were usually buried outside the home, sometimes literally inside the foundations of new buildings. But they never got the skull removed and rebuilt. This ritual was reserved for people who'd already lived a life worth remembering. For most of prehistory, we don't actually know what happened to most dead bodies. At one major settlement, occupied continuously for about 700 years, archaeologists found only around 81 burials. That's roughly 1 burial every 10 years, for an entire town. Populations were growing. People were dying at a completely normal rate. So where did they all go? Maybe bodies were left exposed on purpose. Maybe they were disposed of somewhere with no preservation conditions at all, a river, a forest, open ground. It's a genuinely uncomfortable gap in the record, thousands of missing people, and no clear answer. Burial, it turns out, may have always been a privilege, not a default. Let's go back even further, to a species that isn't even us. At Shanidar Cave in Iraq, archaeologists found Neanderthal remains buried with unusually high concentrations of pollen from several flowering plants. The lead archaeologist claimed this was evidence of a Neanderthal funeral with flowers laid on the body. It's controversial. The pollen could have blown in naturally, or been dragged in by burrowing animals nesting nearby. But if it's real, a species we used to dismiss as primitive cavemen understood loss enough to mark it with something completely unnecessary for survival. Flowers don't help you hunt. They don't help you stay warm. Their only purpose is emotional. Now fast forward to a burial in Germany, about 9,000 years old, known today as the Shaman of Bad Dürrenberg. Researchers recovered microscopic feather fragments, remnants of an elaborate ceremonial headdress worn during her burial. Buried right next to her, an infant. DNA testing revealed he was related to her, but wasn't her son. So who was he to her? A nephew she raised? A child she cared for after losing his real mother? We don't actually know. It hints at complicated, extended family caregiving, the kind of messy, loving human relationships we assume only civilized societies had. For a lot of ancient humans, death wasn't a single event. It was a process that could take months. At Shanidar Cave, some remains show clear signs of defleshing, the body deliberately stripped down before its final burial. Other remains show multiple distinct stages between the moment someone died and the moment they were finally, permanently laid to rest. Picture that, a body kept, moved, processed, maybe displayed, over weeks or months, before a final resting place was even decided. That's an entirely different relationship with death than, someone dies, you dig a hole, it's over. It suggests long, structured mourning. At a 12,000-year-old site in the southern Levant, a woman believed to be a shaman was buried with a stone tool that had been deliberately smashed. Not broken by accident. Not worn down by time. Broken on purpose, as part of the ritual itself. One theory, breaking the object, killed it too, so it could travel with her into whatever came next. It's the same basic logic behind burning grave goods in much later cultures. Some things aren't meant to stay useful in this world once their owner is gone. At Tins Hemet Cave in Israel, archaeologists found a burial site containing both human and Neanderthal remains, together. Along with ochre, basalt, and other pebbles that had zero survival use. You can't eat them. Can't cut with them. Can't build shelter with them. This tells archaeologists that symbolic thought and intentional ritual around death developed far earlier than anyone assumed. The instinct to make death mean something might predate religion, agriculture, even cities, maybe it predates modern humans being the only humans on Earth. It's not just Europe and the Middle East, either. In the Andes, archaeologists found a burial dating back to around 1800 BCE. Several individuals were buried with their bodies deliberately positioned facing the mountains. One theory is this was part of an early water cult, tied to seasonal flooding and irrigation rituals, with the dead positioned to watch over the source of life itself. This was centuries before the civilizations we actually associate with that region even existed. So what does all of this actually tell us? That grief is ancient. The instinct to mark a death with meaning, flowers, faces, broken tools, hidden rituals, even facing a mountain, might be older than our own species. Modern funerals, headstones, even the awkward "sorry for your loss," they're all just the newest chapter in something humans have done for tens of thousands of years. If this kind of history nobody actually teaches you is your thing, hit subscribe. I put a new one of these out regularly, and trust me, the next topic is even weirder.